you? My name's Quinlan. Welcome to the Drum Show. And what I'm doing tonight is carrying on from the last episode, which is all about film music. That little short, sharp, frenetic little piece there was meant to describe a little bit of what the very famous composer and rock star, I suppose, Mike Patton does with his music. Let me backtrack a little bit. Last episode I did a little bit of an expose on the various little facets that make up scoring, writing music for film. And what I talked about was subtext. I've talked about spotting, free timing, synchronization, orchestration, and the like. What I'd like to talk about tonight is film composers. During last week's episode, what I did was talk about John Williams, with very famous film composer with, for people like Steven Spielberg. I've talked about Jaws quite a bit. Snares off. This is obviously the shark theme. That's the swimmer's theme. Subtext, okay, because as soon as you hear that, you're hearing the shark coming. Okay, you can tell, here he comes. The very much lighter theme is some innocent swimming along, ready to get munched. Okay, so that's what happens with that. Now, when we're talking about the various themes of subtext, because we have a theme for each character, sort of thing, or entity, if it's a zombie or a ghost or a shark or whatever, what starts to happen is that you create a mood, and this is really the premise of what I'm talking about as applied to a drum show. Why am I talking about film music when it's a drum show? Well, what can we do on the drums, our percussion, all the different bits and pieces I've put together to sort of describe or, to explain what happens. If when we're talking about film composition, when we're talking about composers, they have a certain kind of, like a style about them, when you're talking about, say, people like Mike Patton, let me talk about Mike Patton a little bit. Probably his most famous band is Faith No More, the singer of. And then he went on to found Ipecac Records, and with that he's got, he's been involved with bands like Mr. Bungle, Phantomas, who I particularly like, and also bands like Tomahawk and various other side projects. He's almost, I wouldn't doubt that he's a workaholic because he's on so many things, and there you go. And what his style is a term called pointillism or pointillistic, because you get a film score from Mike Patton such as Crank 2, the Jason Statham film, where the Jason Statham character has to continually electrocute himself to keep his heart pumping and to find the antidote to keep him alive. And everything's, it's like a continual chase, that kind of thing. And what Mike Patton does is the music that he concocted for the film soundtrack, it's all 1 minute, 50 seconds, that kind of thing. Very short and sharp and very pointillistic. And what pointillism means is very short, sharp bursts of stuff. So how I started the show was, almost like a Phantomas kind of thing. So I'm doing this, then on stop. Stop. Something like that. That's the end. And then the character would start talking, give me the antidote, whatever it is, and all that. And then it would happen that he would do introduction music, and then maybe the hero goes into some kind of Chinese food shop. you know, to see the triad Godfather, you know, and then there'd be some kind of comedy. With Mike Patton's music, there's always a sense of humour about it, okay? So you could get something very foreboding. And then you go into the roly-poly henchman. Car chase. Stop. Very short, sharp. You know, 30 seconds each, 20 seconds here. And it could be very funny 1 minute and then very foreboding the next. So that's a little bit of Mike Patton for you. That's a bit of his style. I'll talk more about that after the break a little bit if you like. Back after it. Okay, back from the break. And I've been talking about Mike Patton. Now, to sort of give a complete contrast to the style of Mike Patton in a very general kind of way, just to give you an introduction as a sort of a second episode into this little film music series that I'm doing, is the fact that you have another great artist, Trent Reznor, who's most famous for 9 Inch Nails. He actually just is 9 Inch Nails. And so much of his music, even with the band, is so soundtrack-like. And what happens is that Trent Reznor would be almost the direct opposite to Mike Patton, because Trent Reznor's music, he won an Academy Award with his partner in crime, Atticus Ross, for his music for The Social Network the other year. And his most latest one at this time of filming is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And he's even done his little industrial cover of Led Zeppelin's classic Immigrant Song. And you can actually, just because it is a drum show, I'll quickly talk about that, you can actually almost see him playing a paradiddle on the two pads, because it's an industrial version. The original Immigrant Song is... and so on, but he's doing it more like... like that. Imagine two pads, and he's got, you know, sort of a very industrial, puts a very industrial treatment to it. But Trent Reznor is more famous for long brooding tracks, okay? Lots of time to build up. You just have this. Now, when you're looking at me playing this, I'm doing a single stroke roll. Because it's a drum show, let me talk about the drum technique. I'm doing finger control, which is often attributed to Billy Gladstone, although he didn't invent the style. It's just attributed to his name. The Gladstone technique, finger control, because you've got a long, long note. Go to double stroke rolls. Single. Something like that. Long notes, but you have on a drum kit you have to work damn hard to actually get long notes played slow, you know, that kind of thing. I've done shows on that in the past as well. What happens is that we're talking about mood rather than beat, so to speak. What can happen is that when you're in a school band, I'm just changing the subject just a little bit, to make it applicable to what you and I do, is that sometimes we're just creating moods with symbols, and different symbols create different kinds of sounds. China cymbals and gongs are obviously oriental in nature, and when you have thicker, flat cymbals, is very much maybe some kind of science fiction film, in space, that kind of business there. But what happens, getting back onto Trent Reznor, long and brooding, and he would slowly layer and overlay different things. So, we might have that. And then I'll bring him, to make it drum-like, I'll bring in my feet. Take out the tom. Bring in the cymbal. Bring in the snare. Take out the feet. Bring back in the feet. Up the feet, move it around. A bit of a theme here. Augment, speed it up. But because my feet are at the same speed all the time, what I'm doing with my hands is obviously polyrhythmic and polymetric. Build up. End of scene. Back after the break. Okay, so do you see what I'm talking about tonight? I'm talking about two film composers in particular who are rock stars in their own right. Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails, Mike Patton, okay, from Faith No More and various other incarnations as well, like Phantom Ass and stuff like that. Now, Trent Reznor is very famous for his long, brooding, layered soundtracks. So good at it he is that he's won an Academy Award for it with The Social Network. Mike Patton is in so many projects, it's crazy. He's on so many albums, and he's got his own record company, and so he should, because it's an outlet for his prodigious talent and all that. But his style of writing for film is almost the complete opposite to Trent Reznor's, because Mike Patton, as I said in the first segment of this episode, is very much pointillistic, very short and sharp. He'll do stings, right? That's it. End of track. And then end of track. And you see, very short and sharp. So you might have a 1 hour soundtrack by Trent Reznor, 60 minutes, and it might have 6 to 10 tracks on it, 5-6 minutes each. Mike Patton could have a soundtrack album out that's also 60 minutes, but he could have something like 45 tracks on it, all 1 minute long, or 30 seconds and then 50 seconds and 1 minute and 10 seconds. Very short and sharp, that kind of thing. And don't forget that when you're thinking in terms of a film music score and as applied to our drum set, you're not always playing a rhythm. I've played rhythm here, with Mike Patton I was just doing very much so that. But when you're actually just creating a mood, I've held that roll long enough for it, what's going to happen next? Like turning the snares off. And what happens with that is that if I just do that, like just imagine, okay, back from the break. I've now played that long enough for you to think, well, what's happening next? I'll switch channels. I'll go to the footy show. Don't. What's Sam going to say next? Oh my God. Who's he offended now? And so what happens is that I've created a kind of an expectation in the film. And like I said last episode about this, is that a really interesting idea is to get a favourite film that you know pretty well, or Harry Potter or a Star Trek or whatever it is that, one of the Crank films, let's say, or something like that, and watch it, put it in the DVD player, but watch it, but without the vision. Okay, turn the TV off, but leave the sound on, and just go about your business, do your homework, whatever it is that you're doing, and all that sort of stuff. But then listen to the music without the visuals, and you'll hear things that, even though you might have watched the film 5 times, you'll hear things you've never heard before, for the first time almost. You'll hear something like... Something like that anyway. And what goes on is that all of these different things add up to mood. Okay, you can create little stabs, sort of... why we need a lot of cymbals sometimes, okay, for the effect. Not if you're playing in the local cover band in the local pub. Just take out a 5-piece kit and a couple of cymbals, beautiful. But when you're actually sitting down and reading a score from a famous composer, such as Trent Reznor and Mike Patton, if they're using real people instead of, you know, drum machines and the like, what actually goes on is that they're going to ask for, we want wood blocks, we want this cymbal, we want a large flat ride cymbal that gives you this kind of. Can you hear the underlying tone? Scene 43 of Crank 4, I don't know, or something like that. And you see, with all of this sort of playing, you get very atmospheric sometimes, a la Trent Reznor. I'm applying everything that these composers do to the drum set tonight, sort of thing. That would probably be a synthesizer with one note going, something like that anyway. Theme comes in, someone creeping around the corner. And something like that, you see? I'll close off with that. So I hope you're getting something out of these episodes. I've done 2 now on film music. Tonight's episode is concentrating more on the composer's side, and 2 particular composers, Trent Reznor and Mike Patton, and their contrasting styles. They both come out of the rock genre. Trent Reznor is famous for 9 Inch Nails. Mike Patton is famous for Faith No More, but they've done many other projects as well. Fantastic musicians, brilliant, even to the bordering of genius, I would think, although that's a much bandied term. So there you go. They're great. So there it is. My name is Chris Quinlan. The email address is drumshow@hotmail.com. and the website is thedrumshow.net. I'm open for all sorts of things, clinics at your local school, lessons, sort of thing. I have books on the subject. I've even written a syllabus that's been used all around the joint, which is terrific. Thank you very much. And hope to see you next week, and with another subject on this beautiful instrument called the drum set. Take care.